48. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's June 24th, 2 days before town meeting, and oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting messages on my iPad. The agenda for tonight, as much as anything else, is to go through the articles that we have reserved for a variety of reasons to this point. Some of them quite significant, like the operations budget, the capital budget, the transfers. For the record, the reason that we are waiting till 2 days before town meeting is because over the last 2.5, 3 months, the numbers underlying those budgets have changed almost daily. And as a finance committee, we were asked through a number of town administrators and accounting changes to just wait, be patient. It got to the point where a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't really possible to be overly patient anymore. And we've had multiple conversations with Charlie Sumner. Thank you, Charlie. With Harry Tarkanian and a variety of other people along the lines of trying to understand where we stand going into town meeting. Before we get into inviting Charlie to present, there are two bits of business. The first is the minutes. I don't know if you've had a chance, because we didn't print them all out, to look at the minutes from June 9th.
I saw them and I will move them.
Okay. All right. So unless anyone has a serious issue with the minutes from June 9th, I would welcome a vote to accept them. I'm going to say aye. Linda?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Woody?
Yes, I.
Stephen?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Jeff? Jeff? Oh, okay, you're muted. That's okay. It looks like
Aye.
you're, okay. All right, so we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I thought there were 8 here.
Linda, aye.
Ah,
Aye.
yes, okay, so I think we're 7-0 to approve the minutes, so thank you for that. I see John Reel is on the line. One of the articles we were supposed to look at tonight is Article 26. Charlie and John, I just want to confirm, my understanding was that it might be reserved, like delayed, and maybe not be on the warrant on Saturday. Is that correct? You're muted, John.
I've had some correspondence with Ryan, and that's what I have heard. And the reason given is just it wasn't formulated as a loan, and there's not enough free cash to support it.
Okay. That being the case, we won't have to discuss it tonight. And appreciate your coming, but you're free.
Well, let me just throw out one thing. In a previous conversation, you had said that some of the committee members had some questions about the project. We're going to come back with it at the fall town meeting. So I would love to hear any questions that anyone has or concerns. That would help us strengthen the proposal when it comes due. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. What I might suggest along those lines is that as it gets closer to where we actually have to vote on them, if you would prepare just a sort of a summary description of what specifically we accomplished by saying recommending it, that would be helpful, since we have months ahead
Okay.
of us. Or we can have that conversation sometime between now and the fall at another meeting, if that's all right.
I would love to do that.
Thank you, John. So with that, if you have in front of you the document we passed around last meeting of the articles that we have not yet voted on, that we reserved, the big three are Articles 1, 2, and 3, the operating budget, the transfers, which is Article 2, and the capital budget, which was 3. We waited until now at Charlie's request so that he would have more time to formalize the budget. And Charlie, with your permission, I'm going to turn the floor over to you to talk through those budgets and then open the floor to the questions from the committee on details. I'll just say ahead of that there's been an awful lot of rumor flying around about the size of the increase of the budgets, some of it coming from official and some from non-official places. And to the degree that you can address what's true versus what is innuendo, that would be really helpful.
Thank you very much, Fred, and thanks to the members of the Finance Committee. I apologize. I live in West Brewster, and it's unusual, but we don't have any internet service at the moment. So anyway, that's the reason I'm on the phone. Okay, I probably am going to ramble a little bit, but so, you know, what have I been doing for 5 weeks, I guess, right? I will tell you that, you know, the first part of this exercise for me was to meet with as many department heads as I possibly could to review the operating budget. And I've done that. And so under Article number 1, I think you all have the motions that I've drafted, I hope. Under Article number 1, I'm recommending that we make 4 adjustments to the budgets. And these are problems that were identified when I met with the department heads. And you can see on the motion sheet that I want to increase the town administrator expense by $2,000. And that's to meet a contractual obligation that we have to our new assistant town administrator that was agreed to when she was hired to help her with some educational funding. And then the second addition that I would like to make to the budget is in the amount of $89,500, and that's for the reserve fund for the Finance Committee. And I think it was just an error with all that was going on in the last 2 months that there was no funding provided for the Finance Committee's reserve fund. And I can tell you, there's no more important time for us to have a reserve fund than now. So that we need to add. And then the shellfish salaries, they need some additional funding in the amount of $8,255. So that's why you can see that addendum from $256,774 to $265,030. And then the DPW facilities is another $8,200 to pay for Porta-John units at the marina. It was also an omission. So the end result of all this is the total budget would go from $673,708 to $21,781,663. So, you know, we're suggesting that we need to increase the budget in the areas that I just mentioned. The second part of what I've been up to lately is I've been trying to look at only this week, frankly, because I had so many other challenges, is to look at the underpinnings of the budget. And so, you know, how do we pay for it? You know, we raise money, we have reserve funds, things of this nature. And when I went through those exercise and worked with our interim town accountant, Lisa Sauvé, the previous town accountant and administrator were suggesting that we were going to use essentially $1,050,000 out of the beach fund to subsidize this budget. And typically you spend over $1 million a year out of the beach fund to subsidize the budget. It's perfectly fine. But, you know, the reality is we don't have $1,050,000. We only have $694,000. And, I haven't gotten to the level of analysis on local receipts that I want to. I will after if we can get through town meeting and spend more time on the detail, but I guess White Crest Beach was closed because of COVID, and right there is hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue. So, should we have been sort of concerned that beach revenues were going to be compromised? The answer is yes. But the reality is today we have $694,000 and it's all we can use. So I've had to reduce that. Now, lately, I've always been talking about using a couple of $100,000 out of the stabilization fund to deal with some of these issues that we're all facing. And because of that shortfall in the beach fund, I am recommending that and I hate to do this, but I'm recommending that we increase the use of stabilization fund, in this case, from $200,000 to $514,200. And the alternative would be that we would have to open up all of these budgets and see where we could make reductions on the expenditure side. But I've run out of time in the period that I've been here, and this is the best that I can recommend at this time. So I think I'll stop for a moment there. I'm sorry, Fred, if I could just add one more thing. The whole underpinning of financing this budget and the warrant articles, it falls into several categories, raise and appropriate, i.e. a property tax levy, recreation fund, beach fund, shellfish fund, CMAS fund. But a big part of that is also local receipts, hotel, motel tax, meals tax, fees and permits. And that's, I think, in the range of generally $2.4 million. I haven't spent any time analyzing those numbers, so I'm trying to give you fair notice that I have a lot of work to do on that, and I'm not going to get it done before Saturday. I have to assume that those numbers are, close to accurate. I'll deal with it as I get into the beginning of the fiscal year. So I'll stop and take any questions if I'm sure you have some.
So, can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
So the total number, Charlie, isn't 28,515. It's over that. It's over 28,600,000. The total.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the total operating budget for the town operating budget? Is that what your
Total
question is?
operating. You said that was 21,781,663.
That's correct.
Okay, now the total budget, which we see on the bottom of page 59.
Oh,
Is
let me get to that. Sorry.
okay.
Yep, I apologize. Okay. Bottom of page 60.
60, yeah.
59.
Yeah. Well, is that the one that says Appendix A and
Yes,
B?
yeah, that's what I'm working from, is appendices A and B, Articles 1 and 3.
Yeah, I haven't even, that still needs a tremendous, that Appendix A and B is one of the things that I have not had a chance to analyze and double check. I do not believe that to be an accurate document at this point.
Okay.
And I say that because I know the debt service budget that is there, 2,286,115. I know that's wrong.
Okay.
Now, and I think some of the I don't really like the formatting of that, the way that is presented, because if you go down and look at the articles, estimated articles, $3,562,000. I'm not sure what the genesis of that number is. I think that's really a flawed spreadsheet. I will say that, clearly there's a lot of overrides on the warrant and for equipment, all the, capital and, the debt exclusions in the Lawrence Road project. So, but that's a borrowing. And I think that the total override questions are about $3,300,000. And I'm guessing that's what that number is generated from. But if I go back, I know, for example, in FY21, that number for articles, the $430,000, isn't accurate. We had a borrowing on the water main project last year of, I think, in the range of $3 million. So those numbers are just, I apologize, but they're just flawed numbers.
Well, on the same, along the same line, Troy, and this is something I guess I just noticed. There was a chart that appears very similar to the one on page 60. It was forwarded around, and it's titled from page 60 of the warrant print version, corrected with data from FY 2021 warrant. It says Wellfleet Township budget per 5/21 warrant for town meeting. It goes back to 2018. So it's got columns for 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And the number that on, at least in the warrant I'm looking at, for FY 2021, where it says the operating budget is $19,039,847. In the other
Yeah.
chart, it's in the other chart, that's under FY 2020.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that
so
number
FY
is not
2021 is actually 20,232,924. It's like a column is missing on page 60 that would make the jump from 21 to 22 look like 4% instead of the 13 or 14% it looks like here. Do you know if the earlier chart is correct? Is there in fact a missing column here that says 2021?
I just have, I've been working on so many fronts. I'm going to ask you to take a look at page 66 of the warrant book,
Yep.
just to show there's conflicting information here. And if you look at page 66 of the warrant book, unfortunately, the columns are not titled, but the third column on the left, the third column on the left
Yep.
says 20,780,000.
No, 20,340,000.
Well, I'm looking at,
There's some-
sorry, go up 4 blocks.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I see it. Yep.
And the only reason I ask you to do that is that's debt. That debt on the bottom 4 columns is included in Article number 3. So you really need to look at the operating budget totals of $20,781,000. So that conflicts with that Appendix A and B as well. So, I just, it's really challenging and terribly confusing. I'm sorry, but I think the 20,780,627 is really the budget for fiscal 2021. Now,
Okay.
I say I think because I would say I'm like 95% sure that's a good number. But you can see that is drastically different than the number that was included in my page 60, somebody's page 59 for FY21. So that whole chart, Appendix A and B, is just a flawed document. And I've been trying to catch up with that, but I have so much digging to do and so many other problems to deal with. I haven't been able to go too far backwards. It is my opinion that the total budget for fiscal 2021 was $20,780,000. And the total budget for fiscal 22 is that $21,782,000. It's $1,001,000 increase, or about a 4.82% increase.
Well, and that, I think, probably addresses at least one of the rumors flying around that there's been a 24% increase in the operating budget year over year.
Yeah, I do not believe that to be true. I hate to condition everything I say, but I don't even think that's near accurate. I like to be a little more precise and definitive, and I just need more time. But I think the numbers that I just represented to you are pretty accurate.
Okay.
A lot of these spreadsheets. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I was just going to say another number that jumps out on page 60 or 59, as the case may be, is the articles line, where it was in the neighborhood of 450 to 500,000, apparently until this year where it's over 3.5 million. Could you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, what I did do on that, because that was like, man, what's that all about? I did go down really quick today. I pulled the adopted articles in the ballot questions that were approved last year, and we had for example, we had a new water main project at $3.8 million that was approved last year. And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 articles that were approved last year amounting to almost $500,000. So, you know, I think, I just think so many of these, that whole Appendix A and B is just compromised.
Where did it, can I just ask where it came from?
Well, the answer is that I don't know.
Okay, I
didn't-
won't push it, that's all.
Yeah, I got here when this was, I didn't work. I was hired at a point when this was in process and almost done. And I've really spent my whole last 5 weeks trying to catch up with problems and issues. And I haven't spent enough time to really dig into that Appendix A and B. It was the one thing that I had hoped to do today that I was not able to catch up with.
So Charlie, if I may, we spoke this morning, full disclosure, and one of the questions that I asked you this morning was what your confidence was that the operating budget that we're looking at is ballpark correct, like within some tolerance, understanding that not all the numbers are there and that a lot of things are still being worked on, such that, well, I'd say the finance committee first, but that the town itself can vote one way or the other with some confidence.
Yes or no?
So that, I believe you said this morning that you had a 97, 98% confidence that the number was ballpark correct.
Yeah.
At least operating
Yeah,
budget.
no. You're accurately reflecting my comments. I'm feeling good about the expenditure side of this budget.
So Fred, I could just make a comment about your comment about the rumor about the 24% increase. I don't think it's pertaining to just the operating budget. There was a newspaper article in the Provincetown Independent, and I think it includes all the overrides. So if the budget goes through the way it's looking like it's going to go through and all the overrides get voted on, the ultimate ultimate increase to the town would be the 24%, but this particular operating budget is only what, 4%?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's not that bad.
that's fair, Stephen. I think that's probably right.
Fred, could I comment?
I can't even see who's talking.
Oh, I'm Charlie. Can I-
That's
can I
Charlie, and
comment?
Jen has her hand raised as well.
Sorry, I can't, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone, so I can't see.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So I will just tell you, I have, and I met with Fred today just as, to go through some of this as chair. And I believe if you were to pass the budget, the operating budget and the capital, and the debt budget as it exists today, that you would be looking at, and now I'm assuming the assessment stays the same, and you'd be looking at about 11% increase in the in your property tax levy. And then I'm going to go a step further because I think this was relative to the question that was asked, and I'm sorry I can't see who on my phone. If all of the overrides were passed, and some of them are, you know, like the fire is a permanent override, and then the others, many of the others are 5-year borrowings, and then the Lawrence Street facility, I figured as a 20-year note. If everything passed on this warrant, you'd be looking at about a 14% increase in your property tax levy. A lot of it is because of debt that was approved last year.
Could you explain that a little bit? I'm sorry, Jen, we'll get to you in 1 second. Just explain that last statement.
Yeah. So when we get into the to the article number 3, the debt budget, you're going to, and I go through some corrections, some problems that we found, that the debt budget in fiscal 21, the current fiscal year, is $1,692,000. I'm rounding again. And then with everything that you have approved to date, you know, last few years, as it's worked its way into the debt schedule, your debt minus Marina and Harbor is $2,702,000. And that's an increase of $1,010,000 in debt. So a lot of it is right there.
Okay. Jen, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question actually goes back to the revenue sources and the stabilization fund, and using more of that money. What is the balance in the stabilization fund?
Yes. Is it okay if I round? Because I've got too many numbers.
Absolutely, it's absolutely okay to round.
Because I'm going to actually see if I can. Oh, I'm going to give you a better number. Oh, here it is. I'm not looking at a text message. Your general stabilization fund balance is $962,503.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, with what I'm proposing here, we're using with the police cruiser issue $639,000 of that. So, you know, it's concerning.
So as follow-up on that, isn't there like a percentage for like overall health of the town that your stabilization fund shouldn't, you know, be decreased so much so that you're leaving the town vulnerable for its bond rating?
Yeah. I mean, this is not an optimal situation, and it's not something
Right.
I feel good at all about. I would say to you that, you know, so if this was the beginning of the fiscal process and I was saying this was a situation that you were in, I would say, hey, you either want to cut your budgets drastically or you want to get an operating budget override. But of course, we're at the 12th hour sort of understanding the cobwebs of this whole issue. I am going to be applying for some money next week. There is some federal stimulus money for revenue loss that I think, particularly with the beach revenues, might be really appropriate. I think that's one of the things that I'll work on through the summer is, can I find some alternative revenues to address this issue? And then I'll spend a lot of time once I survive Saturday, if I do, working on local receipts. And what is the real position of our local receipts? And we have a lot of housekeeping to do to clean up a lot of the journal entries that were made in a lot of these accounts. So that's concerning, but that's why you have Lisa Sauvé and Mary McIsaac and myself here to work on these projects. So my goal would be to work through the whole summer. And then if I can find some alternatives, I have already talked to the select board about, having an early fallish town meeting and try to reduce the requirements of the use of the stabilization fund by every step humanly possible. And so I wouldn't set the tax rate. I wouldn't go out to borrow until I went through this exercise and did my best to reduce the impact on stabilization fund. So I'm frankly using stabilization fund to get through the immediate nature of our budget starting in July 1st.
Did that answer your question, Stephen?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Charlie, you kind of touched on something that I think is one of the fundamental questions that, we're facing and also the town's facing, which is, aside from the fact that you are on I think you said 90-day contracts, so you get renewed and you get renewed and you get renewed.
I know I'm under a lot of pressure to get that renewed. Yeah.
Yeah, you sure are. Summer is calling. But besides that, there is the question of the other shoe dropping. To some degree, I think it's fair to say that if we fly through Saturday, it's a leap of faith to some degree that all of this will get resolved eventually, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months out, and that the work that you and Hillary and Mary are doing now will get resolved, and that these questions of how much the stabilization fund has to get hit and how much is in free cash and what our actual costs are and so on, there'll be real answers to those questions at some point in the fall, such that we can have a fall town meeting and do a kind of reconciliation meeting. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, you did a better job than I did, and thank you. You reminded me. One of the things that we will be doing once we can close fiscal 21 and open fiscal 22 with some degree of confidence is hopefully you're right, there will be some free cash there, and we could also use that to offset some of this use of stabilization funds. So yeah, you did a better job than I did.
Well, thanks. But is there any way at present to guesstimate when you will be in a position to call a fall town meeting, or someone call a fall town meeting, to have that reconciliation, to where we can present to the town what the actuals are and what's going to be necessary, even if it's an override, to fix and go forward from there, assuming new accounting controls and a better idea of how to account for expenses and revenues?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in my mind, I'm hoping that, and I will say this is a push. So I'm always cautioning everyone to don't say, Charlie, you said you would do this, but my goal is to try to get free cash certified by the end of September, and then sometime in October have a town meeting. Now it'll each one of those months, it's going to be pushing the end of each of those months, because we need as much time as we possibly can get. But I am, you know, the reality is cash flow, right? We want to get our fall tax bills out in a relatively timely way. So I'm going to have to balance it against our cash flow situation.
Okay. Yeah, Jeff, you're on mute.
I'm just trying to get, I wonder if you could, just see if I can understand. What you're saying is that we have some revenue shortcomings. For example, we lost the revenue at Whitecrest. We have less money that came in. We have a bunch of debt that we added at our 2021 at our last year's town meeting. And then we have more debt coming in with this year's articles from this year's town meeting. Maybe some unbudgeted expenses, things that we have to pay for. And that what we're looking at is a 14% increase in people's tax bills. And that because free cash has not been certified, we are using our stabilization fund to, instead of the free cash, and with the intent of putting that money back in once it's certified. Are all those things I just said correct?
Yes.
Okay, and
You weren't expecting such a succinct, direct answer, huh?
I'm worried about I don't know what the town meeting is gonna be like.
We're gonna find out,
Yeah,
but that's, you know,
Yeah, I think the last time you had free cash certified, I'm trying to find it. I've got way too many papers, but I think it was in June of 2020, I believe. I think I just found it.
no, I think it was
Um,
2019.
Yeah, 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think they
Oh,
certified.
June?
It's
Well,
not been
I think it
certified
was-
for 2 years.
Yeah, it was for July 1st, 2019, but it was only
Right.
done on June 15th, 2020, which is really odd. So yeah, it goes all the way back to July 1st of 19. So I'm sorry, I have so many papers on my floor, you can't.
No,
believe it,
it's,
so.
it's fine.
So I just have a curiosity question. What is the Department of Revenue's role in all this? Don't they contact municipalities and say, hey, wait, you haven't certified your free cash. What's going on? Or do they just like, don't care?
Maybe I'll do a finer kind of line in between. They are, I don't know if they don't care, but they are the same thing. They have a small group of people servicing all these communities, and they're like one-on paper hangers. So if they don't hear from 10 towns, they're probably like, oh, thank God. So yeah, they're kind of they're overwhelmed themselves.
Right.
Another way to look,
But this is like a key part of budgeting for municipalities. Is one of your asset is your free cash. I mean, well, whatever, never mind.
I
No,
was gonna say,
you're
another
right.
way to look at it is that they really count. So you're saying the state actually counts on the towns to have it together. And we're clearly one
Yeah, I
town
mean,
who does not.
yeah, I mean, you know, they're so busy themselves that they really are trusting that, you know, that we have people in place that are doing these functional jobs.
getting paid?
And now you do know there are occasions, and I'm not suggesting this for Wellfleet, by the way, but there are towns that get so deeply embedded in problems, Chelsea, Springfield, there's others, that they end up in state receivership. So there are situations when it gets so bad, the state will step in, but that is the vast exception to the rule. So
Well, nice to know that we're just sort of, you know, in the middle incompetent. That's okay.
Well,
Only
We're-
because of the
we're in
last few
transition.
years. In general, Wellfleet has done a very good job, and I believe our bond rating is still pretty strong, which is good. So it's just the past 2 years, and truthfully, it's a reflection of the current folks on the select board. Somebody was asleep, and they had a town administrator, unfortunately, who got mired in stuff that he didn't know much about, and here we are trying to clean it up. It's not bad for just 2 years, and I hope that we learn ways to put things in place so that it's like a disaster recovery thing. So
I
that it
think-
doesn't happen again.
I think that's definitely one of the narratives in terms of where we are and where we've been. I'm disinclined personally, I'm not going to speak for the committee, obviously, to think that it is the doom and gloom that some people are representing it as. We've gone through a rough 2-year transition along with COVID, and we are in the process through Charlie and Lisa and Mary and others of discovering exactly what the fundamental issues are and hopefully correcting them. But as I think it's fair to say, we're not going to know by Saturday exactly what the corrective measures are or exactly how deep they are and how much the accounting systems need to be adjusted and fixed in order to get us on a sound footing going forward. Having said that, we have Articles 2 and 3 yet. I don't think we're voting on these as a package because they are fundamentally different articles. I would entertain, unless people are really uncomfortable voting on the operating budget, I would entertain a motion to either recommend or not recommend or abstain. I mean, you have all those options in front of you. But given what we know and what we don't know, and obviously again, there's a certain amount of faith involved here that we believe the numbers are close or we don't. We believe Charlie is doing the right stuff or we don't. There's any number of possibilities, but we do have to vote or abstain completely as a committee. So I'd be very happy to hear what people have to say about that and entertain a motion if we're prepared to go forward. Yeah,
No. Listen.
Mo.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I speak from ignorance. I'm new to the committee. Are we talking about the potential of a 14% increase in our real estate taxes? If all of the articles pass, is that in the cards? Charlie, I guess I'm posing that question to you.
Yes.
So it's my opinion that if the operating budget and the debt budget is approved, your average, this is average because I know you have the exemption issue, tax bill would go up 11%. And then if all of the new overrides are approved, it would go up a total of about just shy of 14%.
Okay.
So
Again,
to be clear, if my tax bill is $100 now, it'll be $114 afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, just to be clear. Helen, I'm sorry, Kurt, hold on one second. Helen, you had your hand up. I see a little.
I have a
hand.
question, if I may.
Yes,
I think I have a pretty good understanding at this point. This is the second time that I've listened to Charlie this week, and it's even more clear than it was. Thank you, Charlie. Can you just lay out for us, please, the consequences of us not passing the budget at this town meeting?
that's a good question.
Because that should be explained carefully to the voters. So can somebody answer that question, please?
Charlie,
Fred, would you like me to start?
Yeah, no, it's to you, Charlie.
So, well, I think that listen, typically I apologize. I think Wellfleet typically holds their town meeting in April.
That's right.
So let's think in Brewster, where I live and work, it was always in May. But anyway, so let's say you go to town meeting, you have some problems with your budget and it's rejected. Well, you can continue town meeting to another week or 2 weeks to allow the policy makers, the select board and the finance committee and the town administrator to work on a plan B. So you've got reserve built into that because of the scheduling. Well, here it's June 26th. And if we don't have a budget adopted for July 1st, those are dire consequences for every service you provide. So we have no safety net, and which is why I came to the conclusion that I came to.
Okay, thank you. Kurt,
Fred,
No,
I'm sorry, I need to make a comment quickly now.
please, very quickly.
Yes, I want to address what Stephen Polozik said. Yes, Stephen, you're right. The select board did not do what I wish.
Helen, I don't care about what you have to
Hold
say.
on, I'm
okay? I want
sorry.
to get through this.
I'm talking.
Well,
However,
that doesn't
what has
matter.
to be- what has to-
This is
I'm
a meeting.
talking.
We don't just,
What
so what? This is a meeting. You can't, did Fred,
Hold on.
we have an agenda.
Fred, we have an agenda. Let's follow it. Thank you, Ivan.
Fred May.
I have to say, Helen, I don't want there to be a back and forth about the select board versus anyone at this point.
I was
I
going to
would-
address the budget, but
I think
never
that you
mind.
have an exception to what was
Never
said.
mind. Never
I
mind.
would like to make the recommendation that we make no recommendation to the budget at this point.
I will second that.
And my thought on that is not because of Charlie, because Charlie's doing a great job, but things are a mess. So this would be a way for people, because we're going to get questions about this, I'm sure. And I don't feel 100% confident on voting this when I've only got bits and pieces.
Okay, and we have a second on that.
I second that.
Before we take the, Kurt did have his hand up and I want to give him the opportunity to speak.
This isn't germane to the motion, but just to the comment about the 14% increase in taxes, which I think is relevant. I just want to point out that, for example, the water system, which was a 3.4 million authorization last year, isn't going to end up being 3.4 to the taxpayers because we got a $2.7 million grant from Mass Works. So
Fred, this is out of order. We have a motion on the table.
it's,
Kurt,
I'll speak later. That's fine.
And a second.
so just to be clear, if we're going to vote now, and we have a motion and a second, to reserve our opinion indefinitely, basically, to not vote
No,
one,
to not make a recommendation.
yes, to not make a recommendation. If that motion passes, we will not make a recommendation to town meeting. If it does not pass, then we have to make a recommendation or not, as the case may be. Yes, Jeff, quickly.
I just want to say, we were given, when the previous town administrator, Maria, and we went through this and we kept asking, where is the hurt? And we were told that basically nobody could tell us where the hurt is. Well, now we're seeing it. I don't know how we can vote for a budget when we're learning that Appendix A and B don't add up. I'm happy to put the town's trust into Charlie and the select board, but I don't know what it is that we would be approving. I don't feel comfortable with, that we have reasonable information. So that's why I would say, I don't
Well,
want,
okay, so there's a motion on the floor
and second,
to not make a recommendation, one way or the other. And it's been seconded. So before I weigh in, I'm going to ask, we'll take the roll call, start with Linda. If you vote aye, you're voting aye for the finance committee not to make a recommendation on the operating budget.
I don't want to make a recommendation.
So that you're voting aye on the motion.
Yes.
Jen,
Aye.
Woody,
Aye.
Mo,
You know, I have to say, it feels, and again, I speak from ignorance and I accept that. I'm
I
having,
gotta, we're doing a motion now. It's not discussion anymore. Aye or nay?
I'm gonna abstain then. I'm sorry.
Okay. Jeff,
aye,
Bob,
Aye.
Stephen, I'm gonna guess aye.
Aye.
And I'm gonna vote aye as well. I think we have 8, is that correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7-1, Rebecca, to
701.
701, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. 701 to not make a recommendation on the operating budget. Yes, Mo.
The problem I'm having is I think we have a responsibility to help our voters in regard to this. And I understand this is like a perfect storm of additional expenditures and reduced income and an accounting mess. I understand that. But as a citizen, and I walk into town meeting and FinCom offers no guidance, I'm troubled.
Wait a minute, you're discussing a vote that's just been taken.
My apologies.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, you know, the vote is what it is. The town will decide one way or the other based on what Charlie just said and what I assume the select board will say about the necessity to have an operating budget. That's not the same thing as the finance committee saying, we don't know what we don't know. And we've done this in the past where we have taken a vote where we just say, look, we just don't understand what we're voting for. And that's, I think, a fair perspective. So let's move on to Article 2.
I recommend that I move that we recommend Article 2. They're just budget transfers.
Well, before we get there, I'd like to give Charlie a minute to at least explain what we're looking at.
Okay.
Okay, so Lisa, one of the things that we worked on lately was we took a look at each of the departmental budgets for the current fiscal year. And in the column from is where we have some surpluses. In the column 2 is where we have shortfalls. And the last column shows the total amount. The total transfers are $292,642. And we think it at least gets us to close out the current fiscal year with, for the most part, with our expenditures for these departments. So.
Anybody have any questions about the transfers?
Yeah, I do, Fred, if it's okay.
Of course, Jen.
My quick question about this is, it seems like there's a lot of surplus in the fire department salaries. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So the town approved an override in fiscal 21 for, I think, $148,000 for 2 firefighters, paramedics. And the hiring of those individuals was delayed just because of the marketplace getting people. And so they were either not hired yet or at the very least delayed. And I don't know the answer to that. But anyway, it's really because of the delay in hiring. And I did review this with the fire chief to make sure that he was supportive of this transfer, and he was.
Thank you.
There are no other comments. I would entertain a motion to approve Article 2.
I already made the motion to approve it. We're looking for a second.
I'll
If
second.
there's,
Okay, I got a second from Jeff. I'll vote aye. Linda?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ira?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Stephen?
wait, let me think about it. No, aye.
All right. Okay, so we are 8-0 in favor. Article 3, the capital and debt service budget, which has been described just in some degree already. Charlie, is there anything else you want to say about that beyond what's
Yeah,
already been?
If I could, I just want, for clarity purposes, if you look at page 67 of your warrant book, that's Appendix B1, FY22 capital budget. So
Yep.
you can see from the motion that we have here, we're eliminating a town clerk shelving and microfilming of town records. So
Mhm.
those we're going to take off, we're deleting those. And then also, because of a problem with the balance in the ambulance fund, we're also going to recommend the deletion of the ambulance replacement in the amount of $340,000. We'll bring that back in the fall. And then the other issue that I had mentioned to you, if you look at the wording in the motion under Appendix B2, is under the Appendix B2, the total debt was represented as $2,316,565. When we went back and reviewed the spreadsheets in our legal obligations, it really is $2,733,289. So that's the amendment that you'll see. So that's what you'll hear during our presentation on town meeting floor. So the grand total for the capital and the debt will be $3,178,419.80.
Okay. You'd said something this morning about the ambulance fund and whether the money was in the ambulance fund to transfer from. Is that $423,000 an accurate number that's available in the fund itself?
No, and that's why we don't have the 423. That's why I'm recommending the deletion of the ambulance. So
Okay.
with the modifications that I just am recommending, that I think we're going to spend with all of these articles $93,000 out of the ambulance fund. Yeah, 93,000. So, and we do have that. So.
And there would be an expectation that that fund will be replenished over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 months, as it often is in the summer?
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, as you know better than I, living up in Wellfleet, that's a busy time of year for fire and rescue. So.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Charlie on this?
So that's a firm figure, 3,178,419.80.
Yes. And we have spent a lot of time reviewing your debt obligations with your financial advisor, and we think we've captured everything with that.
Okay. So so Fred, you're looking for a motion
I am,
for Article 3
correct.
at a figure of 3,178,419.80.
Yes,
I so move that.
Second,
thank you. So I will say aye. Linda,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
Ira,
Aye.
Mo,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Stephen,
aye.
and Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, 8-0 to recommend. Charlie, if you don't mind just hanging out for a little bit, just in case we have any other questions. We don't have a lot of other articles we have to address tonight. In fact, I believe the non-union and other personnel Article 8, I believe, has been pulled. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so the only other 2 articles that we have to address tonight are the Articles 19 and 20, the wastewater articles that we had reserved our opinion on at the last meeting. And Kurt Felix is here and Scott Horsley is here again.
No.
Jesus. Excuse me?
Oops, forgot to mute.
Yeah, you did.
You did.
So watch it. I've also asked Hillary.
I've never felt more welcome.
Listen,
Welcome, Kurt. How you
Don't
doing?
take it personally, Kurt. It is just, it's just the science is numbing, and there you are. I asked Hillary Greenberg to join us tonight as well, because I had a conversation with Hillary a bit over a month ago, and I know she has a perspective on these articles as well. This is not intended to be a point counterpoint as much as an opportunity to gather whatever last bit of information we need in order to fully understand whether these are articles we want to recommend or not this year, or at this town meeting. So without without it being a judgment one way or the other about the efficacy of doing good wastewater management. It's more a question of the financial considerations, as
Right.
it ought to be for a finance committee. So we can start with Article 19, which is the Enhanced Septic System Upgrade Program. The motion reads, well, it's quite a long motion, but it's an appropriation of $250,000. I think we all are familiar enough to know that it gets parsed out septic system by septic system, and that the town would be subsidizing the introduction of enhanced septic systems that are, as I understand it, an improvement over, is it Title IX?
Title V, yeah.
Title V, I'm sorry. And Kurt, if you'd like to speak to this article one last time.
Yeah, well, something's changed quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, and I think this is germane to the Finance Committee this evening. The Conservation Law Foundation filed a lawsuit against the towns of Barnstable and Mashpee and the Department of Environmental Protection. And the basis of the lawsuit is essentially that these towns have knowingly continued to permit Title V systems going in the ground, knowing that they don't remove any nitrogen, and that therefore they're in violation of the Clean Water Act amendments and in violation of their responsibility under 208 to remediate our estuaries. CLF was an original party to the two. I mean, they were the moving party about 8 years ago that, got Barnstable to engage and adopt and ultimately approve a 208 plan. So they're very irritated that towns are continuing to allow Title V systems to go in the ground, knowing that we're going to either have to do something to dig them up and replace them, or in some other way handle the added nutrient load that they knew and should have known they could have done something about. And in particular, Article 19 does exactly that. It puts the town in a, I would say, a very, very comfortable position to say, relative to the potential legal challenge, that the town is in fact being proactive and in fact is proposing a process whereby Title V systems won't any longer be going in the ground, that will be encouraging. We can't regulate, so we do not have the ability within a motion or an article to say we won't allow Title V systems. But what the article basically does is provide an incentive that leaves the homeowner financially indifferent between putting in that Title V or the advanced treatment system, and I think provides an enormous amount of protection to the town legally, notwithstanding all of the benefits, to the ecosystem, to the environment in terms of nutrient removal, et cetera. These systems do, in fact, remove an amount of nutrient that's equal to what a sewer system would do. So they're equivalent. That's the best that we can do these days in terms of nutrient removal. So I think for $250,000, we'd be spending an awful lot of money on lawyers beyond that if the town were to be in a position where for some reason we were suddenly included in this suit. That's about all I have to say about it, but I think very, very short money to provide an insurance policy for the town of Wellfleet.
I'd like to move that we
Excuse me,
recommend
Stephen.
Article 19.
Other people have their hands up, so just hang out, okay? Yeah, Ira.
Okay.
So Kurt, my question about this article is not having to do with the science. It's totally cool with the science. I think you guys, to my understanding, have done a great job. My feeling is that, and I believe I spoke to this in the last meeting, that if you're going to give a homeowner something, I believe that even if they can't afford to upgrade their septic system, shouldn't the article be written so that they would be responsible for that money to the town, even at the back end when they sell their home? I mean, how can you go about given that you have all these systems that are basically failed systems, you're giving new homes, as I understand it, or I don't know who is getting it. Is this new homes or anybody who steps up and asks for it? But like, who is it going to, and why is that fair that some people should get help with their septic systems and others not, when you can just charge them, even if they can't afford it now, they should, I believe they should have to pay for it later.
Well, that's exactly right, Ira. I mean, this would only apply to somebody who already has to put a septic system in the ground. So if they have a failed system and they have to replace it, the question is, do they replace it with a Title V, which they have to do, right? They've got to replace it. So do they do a Title V, or do they do enhanced? And what we're saying is, if you provide the 12.5, somebody can put the additional incremental cost that gets it up to an enhanced. The town would provide that. They're still on the hook for the septic, the Title V system that they would have put in anyway, all the landscaping, all the construction, everything else that goes along with that system. The town's not subsidizing the quote unquote septic system. It's actually assisting in upgrading the technology to technology that will actually reduce nitrogen. So it's a little bit different.
No problem, Dan, no problem with the technology. I just feel that if the town is going to help people out, that they should be on the hook to pay the town back at a later date. I just think it's the way the article is written, that's all.
Okay, Hillary, excuse me, Hillary, since you were good enough to attend the meeting, could you speak to this conversation and give us your perspective as well?
Sure. My perspective is that these enhanced IA systems are very interesting. The science is there showing that they definitely reduce the nitrogen, and really it's a financial issue as far as I'm concerned. So we if the town is interested in subsidizing them, that's great. If the Board of Health is interested in making a regulation that requires them, that could work too. I mean, we certainly don't have to subsidize them, but I think in discussions going forward, what we want to make sure is that the operation and maintenance of these systems is uniformly done. And so the way to see to it that that is done uniformly is to subsidize them in some fashion, so we have some oversight of them. That being said, I mean, we don't have that program spelled out yet. It's still in the works. And we know.
Oops.
Yeah, I think we just lost you.
Why don't you pick up the ball?
So,
Well-
so it looks to me like there could be
Hillary.
some sort of deed restriction, right? Like if they sell the house, then the town could recover the money, because then that
Something like
fee
that.
could be passed on to the purchaser.
Yeah, for me, I just feel
That's-
like the article is not well written.
Okay.
It's a quick-
Scott, you have a hand up?
But
Yes,
can I just
Mr.
make
Chair.
a quick comment, Fred, just to clarify? Because the article isn't meant to spell out what the Board of Health is going to pass for a regulation. It's meant to
Right.
provide funding so that the Board of Health would, in its regulation, be able to provide assistance to the homeowner to get enhanced systems. There's
Okay.
step two is the Board of Health. So Ira, your question is, dead nuts on, but it's a question for the Board of Health and not for this article.
All right, Scott, you wanted to speak?
Oh, Kurt stole a little bit of my thunder here. I was going to say somewhat the same thing, that I think Mr. Wood's comment is a good one, and it certainly could be taken up in deliberations with the Board of Health. We've had 3 or 4 meetings with the Board of Health. We have a proposed regulation, but clearly it needs some more work, and your idea is a good one that we should talk about. But I think the basic point here is, as Kurt mentioned before, my opinion is I'm preparing the watershed plan. The town, I think, is on the hook to meet the Clean Water Act, and more Title V's going into the ground essentially is digging the hole a little bit deeper. And that lawsuit or no lawsuit, I think this is a good step forward. And I think, I heard the earlier part of the meeting. I know the town is in some financial struggles, but this, without this, in my opinion, those struggles get deeper, because something is going to have to happen, and some of the future remedies, such as town-wide sewering, and I don't mean just sewering the downtown, I mean the whole town or a good hunk of it, is extremely expensive. And my belief is that this measure will start providing a much more cost-effective option to, reducing those costs going forward. So I think even though this is bad timing, and I apologize for that, and I'm so glad you have Charlie here, because I know Charlie, he does great work. We do work in Brewster, and but nonetheless, my opinion is this is a cost-saving measure going forward.
Okay, Hillary is back. Before you speak, Hillary, hi, before you speak, I'd like to kind of summarize what I'm hearing at least in my mind, that this is to some degree a proof of concept project. That if it's $10,000 per system, you're subsidizing 25 systems. If you needed 100 systems subsidized, there'd be another appropriation down the road. So at some point, this 250,000 gets used up, in theory. We don't know how much time that would happen. And then, to your point, I believe, the O&M would be necessary to actually validate that these systems are working as they were designed to do, so that we're getting the benefit for the 250,000 that the town has just spent, irregardless of whether there is a health and conservation edict to do these for all future systems or not. Is that a reasonable statement, that we're asking the town to spend 250,000 as part of what may theoretically be a larger wastewater plan, of which this would be a piece?
So yes, this is part of our comprehensive plan, our watershed permitting. This is a concept we've discussed with Mass DEP and with the Cape Cod Commission over many meetings. We're currently engaged in meetings with folks from EPA and DEP to talk about response management entities for these IA systems, enhanced and regular IA systems that we already have in the ground, to work on that fine-tuning measure, to be able to use them as part of our comprehensive plan for the town. So there are a lot of moving pieces, absolutely. And in the end, this will all be part of our watershed permit. We're just not at the finish line yet.
So this and Article 20 are two parts of what were at one time one article that got chunked up into pieces. And we've already voted on the Lawrence Road piece, which is by far the most expensive piece. If we were to go ahead and say, yep, we recommend this and the next, which is $300,000 worth of outlay. Kurt, I think I know where you're coming from on this. I'd just like to ask Hillary, do you believe that these would be useful additions to the overall strategy in relation to the EPA and the DEP, looking at Wellfleet as being a forward-looking and forward-moving town in terms of nitrogen remediation and emerging technologies to support that?
So I think for the difficult part for me is that, I'm in the health and conservation field, right? Like my job is environmentally based. It's not really financially based. I understand the fiscal troubles that are plaguing our town, but from an environmental perspective, these projects are good projects. They're not detrimental in any way. We're pretty confident we're going to get some grant funding for the permeable reactive barrier. I'm interested in the science on the enhanced IAs just to see how they function in our town. They're part of a larger puzzle, but speaking from the environment and from public health, they're not detrimental to any of the functions or anything within my jurisdiction. It's a financial obligation. So if the finances are palatable to the town of Wellfleet and we can make this work, it's great. I mean, they're not going to hurt the environment. What we're doing is going to help the environment. So I really don't want to, go down any other avenue than tell you these projects, are good for the environment. They're expensive, sure. They're good for the environment.
Okay, I mean, I think
Right, can I ask a question? This I want to find out from Hillary, not from Kurt and not Mr. Horsley. When is our plan going to be submitted for approval? It's still out there, I understand. And the latest thing we saw in the news was the fact that the plan that we supposedly have doesn't have a plan B incorporated in it, which is a sewer plan. So what's going on? I mean, why is there a delay in submitting it? And what is who submits it?
Yep. Fred, if I can respond to that.
Please.
Yeah, okay, so it hasn't been an easy process for us.
Right.
We started, not to go back through, a long arduous history, but we started on a comprehensive wastewater management plan, gosh, probably 15 years ago, I think.
Right.
And we went down this road with Environmental Partners Group, and we came up with a draft comprehensive wastewater management plan. Then we had that whole 208 debacle with the Cape Cod Commission and the lawsuit with CLF back then. And then we started down a path of a watershed permit, which is what Pleasant Bay was the first to receive. And that seemed reasonable because our watershed is all in Wellfleet Harbor. There's a little bit in Eastham and a little bit in Truro, but a majority of the watershed falls within Wellfleet Harbor. And so that seemed like a more manageable plan. When EPG did their work, they outlined a basic model of where we would put the sewer. And so we thought that work was complete enough. Come to find out, it wasn't complete enough, and we needed to do further science and research to make sure the site that we thought we were going to use could accept the wastewater and was large enough, and the soil met the proper criteria for disposal. So the process hasn't been easy, and things changed along the way. We spent a decent amount of time researching oysters and looking at that. We spent a decent amount of time trying to do a solution for the marina area, which was, thrown out when folks didn't like the location of the composting toilets and the idea of doing something, larger down there. So we have been working hard, and the question of when, we're getting closer, right? So we're working on a contingency plan. We have a contingency plan to site a sewer. It needs more work. We've requested a scope of work from the consultant who took a look up at the transfer station to do more design work. DEP is very committed to working with us, so we meet with them fairly regularly, but there are so many moving pieces that it just seems to take a lot of time to get there. And it's unfortunate because I always joke, I don't really want to leave Wellfleet until we're done with this project. And the project seems to go on forever. And I'm hoping before I leave that this is going to come to an end, because it's been such a long road, and I am passionate about it, but it's taking a long time. And I think we're getting closer, and these pieces are becoming better understood, and there's more meat on the bones at this point, but we're just not there yet. So I would say another couple months, 6 months to a year, and that's probably fairly conservative, but I'd hate to underestimate it. I think we will be there. So I think that's the best answer I can give you.
Well, I appreciate that because that's very, very thorough.
Let me ask an adjunct question to that. 1 second, Jeff. We've been entertaining various aspects of wastewater management for years, really. And it often seems to come down to whether you would vote, and I'm not saying this to diminish these articles, but they are a hedge to some degree, moving in a positive direction against the inevitability, if we don't do anything, as I understand it, of ending up with a sewer system at some point. That if we were to,
I did make the recommendation to approve this.
okay, but,
So that was I recommend that we do approve Article 19.
okay. Just a second. I just want to say, I just want to ask you if that is a reasonable assessment here, that if the Finance Committee votes to accept or recommend Articles 19 and 20, that we
Well, no, we're
are,
going on night, we're doing them separately. So let's focus on
they're-
19.
but they are related. And
True.
if we were to vote for 19 and then separately on 20, are we, in your opinion, Hillary, moving the ball forward in a way that will delay the inevitability of a sewer system?
Well, I mean, it's a tough question. So I think there's a possibility of that, but I also think we have another public process to go through where the public gets to look at all these options and decide what they want. I think there is a contingent of folks in Wellfleet that might be interested in a sewer system, while there's a contingent of people in Wellfleet that are interested in enhanced IAs. So I'm fairly committed to researching all the options, having a public process that allows people to engage in the discussion larger than we've had. And I think we need to do the work to finish the work to see what's the best plan for Wellfleet for the future. And we know there's a place for enhanced IAs in it. We know there's a place for permeable reactive barriers. We know there's a place for wastewater treatment systems, but we need to finish the path and get the roadmap and move on. And I guess my thought is, just because we ask for this money, we're not going to go out and frivolously spend it. If we're not comfortable spending it, we're not going to spend it. So, I mean, if something comes up where we're like, maybe these enhanced IAs aren't going to work, then we're not going to spend the money. So
Okay. Thanks, that was very useful. Jeff, did you?
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments, because this is the first time that I heard an option different than what is in Article 19. I totally agree with Woody. I've got real concerns about the town subsidizing several lucky homeowners by giving them extra money. And if this is the approach we want to take, then why? Nobody wanted to go to Title V. Everybody hated going to Title V because it was expensive. If this is going to prevent nitrogen from going into the harbor, why can't we simply change the regulations that say this is what you have to do, and then focus on, for those homeowners that need help, let's find them some outside sources. But us providing this kind of, it just doesn't feel right. And so I'm totally in favor of saying from now on, we're going to have stricter rules that are requiring an enhanced septic system, and that maybe we can find places people can go if they're in, financial need. But I don't think this is the way to go about doing it.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we've beat this horse to death at this point. Not the horse that's in the picture there. I don't know who that is.
Really wish you wouldn't, first of all, Fred, use animal cruelty as a metaphor. Thank you. Number one. Number two, could I have one quick, could I ask Kurt one last
really
question?
quick question. I believe we can.
Is there a limit in this thing? Is there a limit per house for how much in the article? Does it say like everybody can get, 25 people can get $10,000? Or what if the Blash House suddenly needed it and in order to stop the horrible consequences there, you had to give them $200,000?
No. This is very specific, Woody, to 12,500, which only pays for the enhancement. That's all that somebody would be eligible for.
Okay. So I believe you made a motion, Stephen, or you at least suggested that we were going to make a motion?
You know what? I think I'm going to withdraw my motion. And then I'd like to move that we approve Article 19 and 20 together.
Okay. Can I have a second on that? Or do you guys keep them separate?
I'll second that.
Rationale.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thanks, Mo.
Are we voting to separate them, or are we voting yes or no on both?
We're voting on them together to either recommend.
Together. And I picked that because they're both related, and I really appreciate Hillary being here because she does make it cleaner and clearer for understanding. I would also recommend that you present the articles because I think you'll probably get more buy-in. But to me,
it's
you two are together.
Let's not go there, okay?
It's just a suggestion. I want to see them. I wanted to see it succeed.
Okay. We are voting to link the two articles together. If
No,
this
we're
vote-
not. We're voting to approve them both at one time.
Recommend.
Correct.
Recommend them.
So
Thank
if you vote in opposition to the motion, you are voting to not recommend both of them, just to be clear.
That's a lousy vote. I don't know why we have to combine them.
You want to vote on them separately, Jeff?
Yes,
Would that make
I-
you happy?
yes. Happy.
Okay, I
with-
withdraw my motion.
Okay, can I have a
To-
motion to either recommend or not Article 19?
So moved to recommend Article 19.
A second.
I second.
Thank you. I'm going to vote aye on Article 19. Linda?
I abstain.
Okay. Jen?
Aye.
Ira?
No.
Okay, so we're 2-1-1 at this point. Mo?
Aye.
3-1-1. Bob?
Aye.
4-1-1. Jeff?
No,
4-2-1. Stephen?
Aye.
Okay, we are 5-2-1, if I got it right, Rebecca, to recommend.
Can I just add one comment, Fred?
Sure.
And I don't intend to change the vote or sway the vote, but it's important to the Board of Health also that we have a good way to administer this funding. So I hear the points that some of your board is making. And I think that the Board of Health will be discussing this, further into the future. And we can come up with a policy, or if it has to be regulation, it has to be regulation, but some type of administration document for this funding, if we do receive it, that is palatable to the Finance Committee, Town Administration, the Wastewater Committee, and the general public, because I hear
I
your
think
point.
that's totally fair. In fact, I believe when you and I spoke, we discussed how you could administer this, the O&M side of it, how you could do the capital side without the O&M.
Yeah, and so the Board of Health isn't at that place yet. We don't have those documents, but I trust that we will get to a point where we have all that. So. I just-
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to kind of take it on faith that this money can't be spent if there's no one to spend it. If there's no one to actually move it forward, if there's no plan for how you would manage a request for one of these systems, it's not going to go anywhere.
We're committed to figuring it out.
So Article 20,
I move to accept, I move to recommend Article 20.
okay, Jeff, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to vote aye. Linda?
I abstain again.
Okay, Jen?
Aye.
Ira?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Stephen? Stephen, is that a yes or a no? You're muted.
The one time I mute, right? Aye.
Okay, we are 7-1 to recommend Article 20.
7-0-1.
That's right, 7-0-1. That is
Yes.
all of the articles that we have to evaluate for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for that who's attended, especially Charlie and Kurt and Scott and Hillary. Very much appreciated, and Helen as well. Always nice to have someone from the select board attend. Love it. The only other business that we have, well, under new business, I had listed selection of finance committee leadership assignments. I think we may want to wait on that because it would be nice to have the whole committee to, especially since the vice chair is not here. So I'm going to suggest that we postpone having any conversations about future roles on the committee. In terms of preparation for the June 26th town meeting, you know that it starts at 10 a.m. I would suggest we convene at 9:30. We did get correspondence from Dale Donovan asking that we reconsider Article 18, the Main Street Route 6 engineering design for God knows what it's going to end up being. And if you recall, I believe we voted 6-1 to approve it, but the concerns were, well, there were several concerns, but they were related to, well, whether there was going to be a good design at all, and whether if we voted to not approve or to recommend, whether the state money would disappear if the town didn't go forward with the continued engineering. There is a difference of opinion about that, and I've heard both of them. Some say that, in fact, I spoke to Charlie this morning, and his opinion is, if I'm fairly describing it, is that if we were to not go forward with the engineering and the design, the state money would disappear and it would not come back. The correspondence we received today suggests otherwise, and I'm going to accept that as correspondence and suggest that in the half hour that we have prior to the meeting on Saturday, that we have a brief discussion about whether we want to entertain that vote again on Article 18. And if we do, we will make that clear to the moderator at the appropriate time. So the first part, as we did with the school vote, will be to decide whether we in fact want to rethink it. And so study up between now and Saturday. And the second part will be whether if we do decide to vote again, we'll vote again. And
Well, how can we get some more information than just study up? I'm
well,
curious.
I mean, there's obviously there's the warrant article. So read the article, read the motion. There's a load of stuff being passed around now. Talk to your friends, read the paper. I mean, there's just a load of opinions out there about whether this is a good idea or not. There's an awful lot, and it didn't just emerge. This has been going on. The bike trail question and the re-engineering of that intersection has been an issue out there for years now. So,
Fred, also on the town website, if you go to the DPW's site, the plan is there, the new plan.
So
it'll show you how much they want to take from that road along the pot shop all the way to the inn at Duck Creek or before that. Yeah.
The ugly, the angry tomato, whatever, not the angry tomato, the ugly, I forget, the wicked oyster.
The Wicked Oyster, right. So that plan is there. You can see it. And the idea is to have this, it's a 10-foot wide bike path. It's stopping at the Wicked Oyster.
But
so that's one thing you can look at.
That there's sort of two shoes here. One is the plan itself, whether you believe in the plan or whether you think it's a good idea, whether you care about the bike path, all of that. And then the issue of whether the town will be eligible for funding in order to make that happen. And those they're related but separate questions.
So wait, we have to clarify some things here now. For what's on the website, this funding is part of this whole article. So we're not going to pay for that piece of it. And we always, we wanted to do some planning to show folks what's going to happen down the line. The responsibility to the town, which is going to be expensive, is building that bike path after the Wicked Oyster, all the way out either to Long Pond Road or to match up into downtown. So there, for future planning, which I do think we all feel is our responsibility to warn our residents about, there is future expenses involved that the town is going to have to do if this thing is approved and we accept the funding that they have now. The funding that's out there is not including anything extra that the town has to do.
That's true. Thank you, Stephen. That's a very valid.
Can I suggest then, this does sound important, and I have seen that ridiculous looking plan. We should have an agenda that if we are going to meet at 9:30, this should be an item on the agenda so that we can actually not just get there and decide and check out info from your friends, but like, are we going to recommend it? I can see not doing it now, but if we're going to meet at 9:30, we should have a scheduled announced meeting for that time with this on the agenda.
Yeah, and I'm trying to bend and be flexible here. We don't have 48 hours before the start of town meeting at this point.
Okay.
And-
so we should
And I
maybe-
don't, and I honestly don't, maybe Rebecca can weigh in. I honestly don't know if we can create an agenda with less than 48 hours prior to town meeting, or can we just have an informal conversation and review our previous decision and reconsider it? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
I think
The
we should,
town meeting is at 10, so you've got 48 hours. You've got to post it now, though.
but we could also continue this meeting.
It would have had to have been from 10 o'clock this morning, would be 48 hours. So we don't have 48 hours. Rebecca, do you know whether we can or cannot create an agenda to review this question on Saturday morning?
I don't think that you can because it's in violation of open meeting law, but I can find out for you first thing tomorrow morning just to make sure that I am correct in that information.
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
So then let's go with Ira's idea. Continue this meeting.
Just continue the meeting until,
Yeah, I guess the issue I would have with that is that there seem to be any number of people on the committee right now who are not familiar enough with the issue to
How do you know?
make an informed choice about whether to re-vote or not.
well, I thought that's why we're not doing it now.
But,
In other
well,
words,
right,
anybody who's here in the meeting could say, I move that we reconsider Article 18. But we're not doing that because we want to give people an opportunity to educate themselves.
we're also not doing it because it was not on the agenda for tonight. The only thing on the
We have
agenda
other
was,
business. Don't we have other business?
yeah, but evaluating articles on the warrant was not part of the agenda tonight.
It could be, I think Ira's right. It could be considered under other business.
If it's the sense of the committee that it's worth reviewing this question tonight, I'll go along with it. I have no idea if we are violating Robert's Rules of Order here or not. But if enough people on the committee feel that it's important to review this Article 18 and consider revoting on it, then let's have that conversation and let's be done with it.
Is it important for the committee to vote on this, or can individuals, not as members of the committee, be able to feel free to speak at town meeting? I'm not sure why we,
You can speak, you can go off to the mic and speak as an individual always.
yeah,
You can't speak from the finance committee's perspective if you're going against the vote that we already took. That's just not how that works. So we've already voted 6 to 2 to 1 to approve this article. If there's a strong feeling amongst enough people that you want to change your vote, let's have that conversation. Otherwise, there's not much value in having the conversation. I mean, we can, go back and forth, but at the end of the day, if you're not feeling at this point, based on everything we just said, that you're inclined to change your vote, why would we frankly get into it?
Can
Okay.
we get into it if
Another
it's
question.
not
sure.
on the agenda? Other people might want to speak on that at our meeting.
I totally agree, Linda. I think this is just a dodgy place for us to be right now. And if we can't, Rebecca's going to see if we can address it pre-meeting on Saturday. And if we can't, then we can't. And then individuals can get up and speak their mind, speak their heart at the meeting, but not as spokespeople for the finance committee. And that would be my gut on it.
I agree.
I agree.
Fred,
right.
I agree with you too. I think we're in very in a difficult spot here, and this could be in violation of open meeting law right now.
Fair enough. So,
Okay, I move to adjourn.
A second.
all right, all in favor of adjourning?
Good to see you all.
You too. Glad you're on the board. Fred.
Bye.
Good job, Fred.
Thank
Another good job in a
Oh,
difficult.
thank you, Ira. You're
No, you
great.
you do a very good job. It's true. It's not easy. And we all still think the world of you, even if we disagree with you.
Thank you.
Okay.